Medusamon being the boss monster of Owen Dreadnought, which was hinted from the Digimon Liberator webcomic, is finally here, and today, let's talk about this deck. The archetype mainly focuses on the reptile and dragonkin trait. As you climb up with your Digivolution stack, you want to attack into your opponent's security. As soon as you check into their security, a lot of interesting things happen, starting with the Digimon egg, which lets you digivolve into your boss monster, ideally going to be your Medusamon, for reduced cost. And by getting into her, you get to check an additional security and gain even more DP power. Then you also get to delete your opponent's Digimon, sending the opponent a petrification token, which can be deleted to further trash your opponent's security, then afterwards dealing a ton of damage in one go. Since it is a red-based deck, the standard idea is to deal as much damage as quickly as possible in order for you to win games. The thing is that this is the very first time that the archetype is being brought into the game, and that means I can expect to see another form of future support with a full line of Medusamon in future sets as well. So if you guys are fans of this particular deck and archetype, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to stay tuned for more. But this is where the problem actually comes in. As I was playtesting with my initial build, I realized it was rather difficult to actually close out games and finish the opponents off, as I'm required to execute the combos 2 times in order to actually get there. And that is exactly the moment when I discovered by adding 2 cards into this deck, you can exceed the OTK potential that it has in order to help you secure your wins. And those 2 cards are exactly from the Legend Arms archetype, which I'll talk about more just in a bit as we begin with the deck profile with the Digi-Egg cards. Running 4 copies of the Digimon. Like I mentioned earlier, this is to help you bridge into your Digivolutions by reducing it as you remove your opponent's security, which is the main way for you to climb with paying less memory. Now let's talk about level 3s. I'm running 4 copies of elizamon. This is mainly your searcher of the deck to grab you anything that's the reptile, dragonkin archetype, as well as liberator, so you can grab your Owens and your options that you need for the deck. It's inheritable, gives you a memory whenever the opponent's security stack is removed, which is really helpful as you go for your combos so that you're giving your opponent less memory to work with, or you can even retain your turn at times. For the secondary rookie, I'm running 4 copies of Agumon, which helps you pick up any dragonkin or reptile trait card from your trash back to your hand when you play it out, which is great for recurring resources so that you can climb all over again once you have a first stack established. And its inherent effect, giving you extra DP buff, is nice so that I can ensure to swing over your opponent's Digimon or their security safely as possible. Then I'm running 2 copies of the EX4 Guilmon, which is a rush target to help us make an additional attack. Often enough, it will help us finish the games. We can pick this card up back with Agumon, and ideally we'll only play it off of Lamiamon's inherent effect. That's it for level 3s. Now let's talk about level 4s. I'm running 4 copies of the Metromon, which is to help us play out our Owens for free when we digivolve into it, and just like elizamon, we get the same inherent effect to gain us memory. Then I'm running 2 copies of Cyclomon, which we can play out from security, and when we play this card out, we get to basically delete the opponent's Digimon with 4,000 DP or less. This is mainly so that we can delete the opponent's petrification token and gain further value by trashing the security and comboing afterwards, which I'll show you guys later on. With its inherent effect, you gain extra 2,000 DP, just like Agumon as well. Now for the first Legend Arms spicy card, which I'm going to talk about. I'm running 4 copies of Zuber Eagermon from EX6. Now you guys might be wondering, how does this card actually even work with the archetype and solve the issue? The thing is, I want to jump a little ahead and talk about Lamiamon, is that we never really get to use its your turn once per turn effect to redirect and trash the opponent's security, just because there's not a lot of redirecting going on. Now the thing is, Zuber Eagermon has its own effect, which can gain raid, as long as you tuck in the source underneath. Now the idea is to do that so you can gain extra DP buffs as well if you tuck in another Zuber Eagermon. Once you have raid, you can go into that Lamiamon, and then you can raid into your opponent's unsuspended Digimon with the highest DP. And at that point, an attack target has been switched, meaning you can trash your opponent's security and then further digivolve into a Medusamon afterwards. Aside from that, from its hand effect, you can always pay 1 memory to tuck it in underneath a level 4 that you have, or a Legend Arms trait, just to give even more DP buffs to make your stack even stronger than ever, swing over almost anything. And the same goes for its inherited effect. And you guys might be still wondering, how does that actually all tie in together? Don't worry, I'll show you guys exactly the DP numbers I can get to, and how big and how strong and how cohesive it is when we get into the combos later on. So let's talk about level 5s. And yes, talking about Lamiamon, I'm running 4 copies of this card, and that is where the new keyword progress comes in, giving your Digimon complete immunity to all your opponent's Digimon's effects during the attack. This includes any aces of blast evolution effects that may remove your Digimon, security Digimon effects, or even option cards as well. But keep in mind, this doesn't play around any effects such as blocker or ice clads or anything that alters the actual battle conditions. The other thing to keep in mind is that you're only immune to effects during the attack, meaning lingering effects still apply even after the attack, such as DP reduction. And that will be automatically reapplied as soon as the attack is finished. And like I mentioned earlier, we get to trash the opponent's security whenever attack target is redirected. So aside from just relying on the opponents to redirect the attacks or block for us so that we can trigger that, and that is why the Super-Egomon works, because it provides raid and gives us a form of redirection that we can control ourselves, aside from just the War Greymon that the line doesn't currently have yet. But I'm pretty confident with the next line of support is probably going to give us some form of redirection ourselves. Its inherent effect allows us to play any reptile or dragonkin Digimon from our hand that's 5000 DP or less all turns once per turn whenever opponent's security stack is removed. This is where, like I mentioned earlier, where we can play out Gilmon for an extra rush attack to finish off games, or even play out Cyclomon to pop up the petrification token to trash another opponent's security to gain further value, or even play out elizamon and Agumon just to fetch any pieces that we need. Then for the secondary level 5, I'm running 2 copies of Cyberdramon, which also has the rule trait being a dragonkin type, which can help us synergize with the rest of the deck. And we mainly use it to force the opponent to remove a security by having them tuck another card from their hand into the bottom of their security, and then we trash the top so then we can instantly synergize with anything that removes from security effects such as Gigimon or even Lamiamon itself. Its inherent effect to give us 4000 DP is ginormous, just to ensure that we can attack almost over anything. Then to round off for the level 5s and for the second Legend Arm Spice, I'm running 2 copies of Duramon. This is also intended to work with the Super-Egomon because by paying the 2 memory and tucking it underneath it, we get to give it extra security attack +1 for the turn, which actually is an extra damage that we might need for an OTK potential. On top of that, the Super-Egomon will then gain raid and piercing for the turn, so then we can go into Lamiamon and complete the combo that way. And this is where the further spice comes in, because Duramon also lets you trash an opponent's security with its inherent effect whenever an attack target is switched. Meaning, as you raid into opponent's Digimon, you get to deal another damage. Otherwise, there are times you would just Digivolve into this guy as your stack and then tuck in a Super-Egomon to give it raid and piercing for the turn as you Digivolve into Medusamon and then finish off with an attack as you still get to redirect and raid and continue to get value by trashing your opponent's security. That's it for level 5s. Now let's talk about level 6s. I'm running 4 copies of Medusamon. It only makes sense as the main boss card of the deck. It has progress as well as a new keyword, which we explained earlier, being unaffected as we attack. When you Digivolve into her or at the end of attack once per turn, you get to delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest DP. And this is a Yume effect, so you can choose when to order and sequence this to synergize and combo with your other effects. Because this also helps out with her last effect of all turns once per turn. Whenever the opponent's Digimon is deleted or a security stack is removed, you get to play out a petrification token on the opponent's side of the board. That petrification token played out is white, 3000 DP, and it cannot suspend. But it has an on deletion effect, which trashes the top card of your opponent's security stack as well, which is generally why you want to remove that token either with Cyclomon or the memory setter Owen's effect. But now thanks to the Legend Arms, you even have the opportunity to raid over it if it's the only unsuspended Digimon with the highest DP left on your opponent's side. Then as our secondary level 6, I'm running 1 copy of the BT21 War Greymon. You can hard play this guy and reduce its play cost, and the more Digimon your opponent has on the board, you get to further reduce it and make it cheap. Itself has rush, raid, and blocker, so you can attack with it immediately. And all turns once per turn, you get to unsuspend it whenever opponent's Digimon is deleted, so you can make pretty much 2 attacks in a row with it. Very good for spot removal, and also being one of the only cards out there that has raid within the archetype line so that you can redirect your attacks. That's it for level 6s. Now let's talk about level 7s. I'm running 2 copies of Omni-X, just a fantastic finisher generically for most red-based decks, as you can Digivolve on top of it, and then you can make a final attack, also bomb deck your opponent's Digimon while doing so. That's it for all of the Digimon. Now let's talk about Tamers. I'm running 3 copies of the 3-cost Owen just to gain additional memory at the start of main as long as the opponent has a Digimon on the board. Its secondary effect pretty much lets us sneak in an attack before the turn ends as we Digivolve up the stack, which we pay quite a lot of memory of. But by doing so, we can easily pierce for damage at the same time, so that we can gain that memory back off of Eliza and even Dimetromon, so that we can give the opponent less to work with, and we're still able to climb into her stack to fulfill our combos, which I'll show you guys more how it works later on too. And then I'm running 2 copies of the memory setter Owen just to help us start at 3 memory when we begin our plays, and also letting us delete something that's 4000 DP or less with its secondary effect, which is mainly to help us get rid of the opponent's Floodgate rookies, or mainly the petrification tokens that we play out for them. That's it for the Tamers. Now let's talk about options. I'm running 2 copies of Medusamon's signature move, Raging Serpentine. This is a very powerful option card, normally costs 8, but you can easily reduce its cost by 4, making it a 4-cost usage as long as the opponent has 3 or fewer security. The thing is, when you go for your main stack combo, you usually put them down to 3 or fewer security already, so that can very easily fulfill this condition once that's met. When you use this option card, you pretty much delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the highest DP. Afterwards, you set it in the battle area with a delay effect. And that is another form to let you Digivolve up into your stack aside from utilizing Gigimon, because whenever the opponent's security stack is removed, you can easily then Digivolve into any reptile or dragonkin from your hand for free. Otherwise, its security effect does exactly what its main effect does. Unfortunately, you don't get to place it in the battle area afterwards though. Then to round off for the rest of the staple option cards, I'm running 4 copies of Red Memory Boost, 2 Offense Trainings, and 2 Red Scrambles. The reason why I want to prioritize more on Red Memory Boost is just to help us dig deeper to fetch us the pieces that we need, since this is a red based deck after all, which we do run into consistency problems to find the pieces that we need to build into our optimal stack. Aside from that, gaining memory helps us execute the combo plays easier when it comes to with our Legend Arm cards, since we need to pay memory in order to tuck them underneath our Digimon. Another note I want to mention for Red Scramble is that it comes in clutch, which allows us to play a Guilmon in the later stages of the game so it can gain rush, and then we can rebuild a stack or even finish the game off for a clapback play. The other application that I find useful is that I can stack my Legend Arms card that are from the trash back to the top of the deck to ensure that I can go all out with my full combo afterwards. Tech choices and other cards that you guys can also be including for this deck. First, there's Gaussmon, which is also a reptile trait, which is just a floodgate to prevent the opponents from reducing Digivolution costs. There's also the EX1 Agumon, which can help you cycle through Tamers and grabbing additional Agumons if you need. If you're looking for additional draw power, you can include the Star Deck 7 Guilmon just to provide you that with its inherit effect, since we delete the opponent's Digimon quite often. However, we don't get to warp into Gallantmon since we don't play that in the deck. Other level 4s, there is the EX8 Tyrannomon, which can Digivolve for 2 costs on top of any reptile, which all your level 3 have that trait. It gives you extra DP buffs that last until the end of the opponent's turn, and it's another security Digimon just like Cyclomon that can play out after the battle too. Another level 4 that has redirection in the form of Raid is also the promo Flamedramon, which I did include for my original build. The initial concept is actually quite neat, as you get to play this card out for free with Lamiamon's effect, as then you have a body established, which the next turn you can then attack and raid with it, and potentially make your opponent bounce a security to their hand, dealing a lot of damage. However, the main reasons why I didn't suggest to include this card in the deck in the end is because even though it has raid, you don't really have rush to make an attack that same turn, so you're not really getting the most value as you have to wait the turn after. Furthermore, it actually doesn't even work with Lamiamon's your turn effect, because once you Digivolve up into your stack, you no longer have the Lamiamon your turn effect to trash your opponent's security, meaning you're gonna have to set up another Lamiamon to really get the most out of it. And in my opinion, it's just too slow and requires quite a bit of setup, which we don't have the luxury to pull off in most games. Another level 5 that you guys can include is the Pyodramon from BT20 from the Virus Imperial deck. Although you won't be able to DNA into this card with this deck, you still get to Digivolve for 4 costs, and for that you still gain 4000 DP and piercing for the turn, and you can still make an additional attack. As you swing into the opponent's Digimon and pierce for damage, that's when you can use the Gigimon egg to bridge into a Medusamon once again and deal even more damage in one go. Other level 6 you can also include is Medieval Gallantmon, since it's a red based deck after all. It's also a very strong staple just to counter against the meta, just to remove multiple bodies, which really works well with the deck too. Another new card is the Promo Gaiomon, which can also help you redirect attacks. And that is by taunting your opponent's Digimon. Itself has reboot, blocker, and you get to trash your opponent's security when an attack target is changed as well, similar to Lamiamon. Since the deck runs a fair amount of Agumons, you can also include Agumon Ace, which can counter against your opponents when you're low in security or as an alternative level 7 to get into. Other than the Memory Setter Owen, you can also opt in for the Memory Setter Tai from BT1 just to give you extra security +1, which can help you actually fulfill the OTK conditions easier too. Then to counter any meta decks that play Digimon by effects and punish white boards, there's also Crimson Blaze that you can include. Combos and how to play the Medusamon deck. Generally, it is a red-based, stack-based building deck after all, so you're trying to Digivolve up your stack from your level 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s to deal as much damage as possible. In the progress of opening hand, you want to find yourself the offense trainings, Red Memory Boost, elizamon, so you can search and grab your pieces, set up your Owens, play them off for free with Dimetromon, and once you climb into Lamiamon and Medusamon, that is when you can start trashing your opponent's security, dealing tons of damage with massive DP, and eventually you can play out Cyclomon to pop your opponent's petrification token to deal even more damage, or even play out Guilmon to rush and finish off game along with Omni-X. The other cards that I want to showcase is the Duramon and Zuber Egamon, which is the Legend Arms inclusion of this deck, and I'll show you guys exactly how it works and functions together to pull off some crazy damage OTK. Starting with the first combo, I'm going to show you guys the basic of how to climb into Medusamon all the way in one single turn with elizamon, and a memory boost setup is all you need. But at the same time, I'm also going to show you guys all the rules that you need to know as you check into your opponent's security and how to combo off properly and as effectively as you can. So we're going to push out, and then we're going to use the memory boost to gain 2 memory. Digivolve into Dimetromon for the 2 costs, and with its effect we get to play out a Owen Dreadnought, which is going to be the new BT21. Then we're going to Digivolve into Lamiamon for the 3 costs. At the end of turn, we're going to suspend the Owen Dreadnought to give the Lamiamon piercing, and it can attack. We're going to attack into the opponent's security. This is where the security check is going to happen. Let's just say we check into Raging Serpentine, which is an option card. Anything that has a security effect will activate first before resolving any other effects, as that takes priority. But this is where the nice thing is that Progress is going to keep Lamiamon pretty much immune for that duration, so it won't be deleted off of this effect. But let's say in the case, we checked into a War Greymon, which is 11k DP instead, which is higher DP than Lamiamon. This is where we get to activate and resolve our effects before the actual battle happens, as soon as we've done the security check. So we're going to activate Dimitri and Elizamon to gain a memory each. And then now we get to use Gigimon to actually Digivolve into Medusamon for reduced cost of 1, making it 3 costs instead. And because we Digivolve into Medusamon, her when Digivolving effect is going to be the newest trigger, giving us the option to delete the opponent's Digimon or not. And this is a you may effect, otherwise we can save it for the end of attack. But in this case, let's say we do. And because the opponent's Digimon is deleted, the opponent will play out a petrification token on their side. Now that all effects have fully resolved, this is where we then proceed to the actual battle of Medusamon against War Greymon in the security check. 12k versus 11k, that means we ensure ourselves to survive that security battle there. And because Medusamon has security attack +1 herself, we're going to deal another damage for the duration. Let's just say we check into Elizamon for 1000 DP. And this is where Lamiamon's effect can kick in because a security is removed, so that we can play out a Cyclomon, which then we resolve the on-play effect of it to delete the opponent's Digimon 4000 DP or less, which we're going to delete the petrification token. And because the petrification token is deleted, we'll trash the top opponent's security, not the Elizamon that we checked, but it will be another security underneath it if they have one, trashing that. And now once again, all the effects have fully resolved. Medusamon will proceed to battle against Elizamon, taking it down as well. For this combo, I'm going to show you guys a different way that you can climb up into Medusamon with a different method, but having this pretty much same setup as from before. We're going to go ahead and push out Elizamon, use the memory boost to gain 2, Digivolve into Dimetramon for the 2 cost, and then play out Owen like before. Now we're going to Digivolve into Cyberdramon this time for the 3 cost. With Cyberdramon's effect, the opponent will have to place a card from their hand into the bottom of their security stack, and then we trash their top. Since the opponent's security stack was removed, we're going to gain 1 and 2 memory off the Inheritables. And then we get to use the Gigimon to Digivolve into Medusamon for 3 costs. Assuming that the opponent doesn't have a Digimon, we're not going to use the when Digivolving effect of Medusamon just yet. So now we're going to proceed to the end of turn by suspending Owen so that we can make an attack with Medusamon. We're going to attack the opponent's security, and upon the first check, we're going to immediately use the All Turns effect to play out a petrification token first on the opponent's side. And then we're going to resolve for the second check with 16k and Progress. And what that means is that Medusamon is still immune to all your opponent's effects during this duration attack, including any security options, tamer effects that may affect it, or even Blast Ace Digimon that your opponent may try to use to counter against you. Once you finish conducting the second check, this is where we're going to use the end of attack to delete the opponent's lowest DP Digimon, which is going to be the petrification token, to further trash down the opponent's security, putting them down to 2 left. Now for the combo that all you guys have been waiting for is how I utilize the Legend Arm cards as my tech spice to potentially OTK against the opponents. Although we're not always relying into this combo, but once you have it, it gives the deck a potential avenue to win games out of nowhere and your opponents don't see it coming. We're gonna have a setup with Zuber Eagomon in the back ready to go, with the double Owens set up on the board with one of each, the memory setter and the one that gains us a memory, and we're gonna have a boost as well. And as long as the opponent has a unsuspended Digimon on the board, you're ready to go. We're gonna push out Zuber Eagomon, and Owen is gonna gain us a memory at the start of main. I'm gonna pay the 1 memory to tuck another Zuber Eagomon underneath. What this is going to do is that it's going to give this Zuber Eagomon extra 4000 DP. And this Zuber Eagomon itself, since something is tucked underneath, it's going to gain raid and piercing for the turn. Now I'm going to use the delay of Red Memory Boost to gain 2 memory. And I'm going to Digivolve into Lamiamon for the 3 cost. Right here, Lamiamon is at 15k DP with all the buffs that it has. We're going to swing into the opponent's security and utilize Raid, which we have from Zuber Eagomon, to switch and redirect into the opponent's unsuspended Digimon with the highest DP. And this is what allows us to utilize Lamiamon's Your Turn effect. Since an attack target has changed, we get to trash the opponent's security. We get to utilize Elizamon's effect Inheritable to gain a memory, and this is where we can use Gigimon to actually Digivolve into Medusamon for the reduced cost of 1, making it 3 only. This is the moment where you need to analyze the board state and make sure what Digimon your opponent has on their side of the board. If they only have 1 Digimon, you're not going to use the when Digivolving effect to delete it, as you're swinging over it and you also have piercing thanks to Super-Eagomon. But if the opponent does have a lower DP Digimon on the side for you to delete, you can go ahead and do that as well. Once you take down the opponent's Digimon, you're going to pierce for 2 checks. Upon the first check, just like before, since the opponent's security is removed, you're going to resolve a bunch of effects first. You're going to go out and play a petrification token on the opponent's side, and then because opponent's security is removed, you're going to suspend Owen Dreadnought to delete the petrification token to trash their top security. After trashing the top card of the opponent's security, then you're going to battle the first security check upon Medusamon, and then you're going to deal another security attack +1 off its own effect, finishing off where you deal 4 damage in total. This is where with Lamiamon's effect, we're going to go ahead and play out Guilmon, assuming that there's 20 or more cards in both players' trash in the later game stages. Guilmon is going to have Rush, and we can attack for 1 more hit. Since the opponent is down to 0 security, this is where we finish it off with Omni-X. Alternatively, I want to show you guys a different method to execute the OTK combo with the Duramon this time with the Legend Arms cards, but it's also to really prove to you guys that it is somewhat consistent where you don't always have to rely on the previous one in order to do so. So this setup, we're going to say we have the Super-Eagomon outside in the battle area, and in this case, we don't have Gigimon just for demonstration's sake. Whether you have it or not, it's totally fine. But instead, if you don't have it, then this is where we're going to utilize a setup Raging Serpentine that we already have on the board so we can use this delay effect. Just like before, we're going to have the Owens, so starting our turn at 3 memory, and then at the start of main, we want to have the opponent to have a Digimon that is unsuspended on the board, where Owen is then going to gain us a memory. We're going to pay the 2 memory to actually slide the Duramon underneath the Super-Eagomon. What this is going to do is that it's going to give us security attack +1 for the turn off Duramon, and we're still gaining the raid and piercing that's just like before. Now I'm going to Digivolve into Lamiamon for the 3 costs. I'm going to use the Owen Dreadnought to suspend because it's the end of turn, so I can make an attack. Lamiamon is going to swing at the opponent's security, and we're going to use Raid to redirect into the opponent's highest unsuspended DP Digimon. Since an attack target has been switched, this is where Lamion gets to trash the opponent's top card of their security, and because the security is removed, we get to gain a memory of elizamon. Furthermore, Duramon also lets us trash another security, so that's immediately 2 trashes in 1 hit. Lamiamon will be swinging to the opponent's Digimon with 9k, but since the opponent's security is removed, this is where we can use Raging Serpentine's delay effect to Digivolve into Medusamon for entirely free. Just like before, depending on the board state and how many Digimon the opponent has, we want to delete their Digimon with the lowest DP or not. But once again, assuming that they only have 1 Digimon, we're going to save that for the end of attack later on. Medusamon is then going to take down the opponent's Digimon. As soon as the opponent's Digimon is taken down, we play out a petrification token on their side. Now we're going to pierce for 2 checks. Upon the first check, we're going to use Owen Dreadnought to delete the petrification token, which is also going to further trash their security. Just like before, since Medusamon has security attack +1, it's going to deal 1 more check into the opponent's security with 14k DP. And now that the opponent has 0 security left, just like before, you can either play out Guilmon in the later stages of the game to rush for the finishing attack, or go into Omni-X to win. Don't forget to grab the Destined Partners playmat and the status counters on the AVAULT Store, which are perfect accessories to help assist you guys while playing the game. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. You guys have a great day, great night, wherever you are. See you in the next video. This is AVAULT signing